Hey everybody, and welcome to today's episode. I have one of my friends with me. We met in one of our group therapy classes a year ago. I ended up doing an episode on it, Human Relations and Group Dynamics. I don't know what episode number it is, but anyway. Tanner, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Tanner Dougherty.
How do you say your last name?
Dougherty.
I've always wondered. I just never wanted to try.
You've never asked?
Nope.
You've never asked how to say my last name?
Nope.
What's your last name?
Nielsen.
Yeah.
Easy. Just don't say Nelson.
Yeah, mine's Irish.
Yeah.
So, but we're not in Ireland.
Dougherty.
So no one knows. Yeah.
Wow, okay. Here's the thing, though. It's spelled interesting. That's why you don't know.
Yeah, it's spelled Dougherty.
Yeah, like dough.
Like dough, yeah.
Yeah, but it's Dougherty.
But if you go with them Pennsylvania, where them Irish people are,
yes.
say Dougherty.
Oh, Dougherty.
Yeah. A lot of girth on the GH.
I see. So, tell me more about yourself. I interrupted.
So, I'm majoring in psychology. Got some aspirations to be a therapist. We'll see how that goes. We'll see what the Lord has in store for me.
Tell us more about your family life.
I'm married, so that's always been fun. Mm-hmm. Been married for like 2.5 years. Yeah. It's been pretty nice so far.
Yeah.
I would say. You could ask my wife. She might tell you something different. I don't know.
That's funny. So the reason that he's on this podcast is because, like he said, he's a psychology major, and we have a class together called Positive Psychology. And basically it's the study of happiness. And one of these PowerPoints or lectures that we had was low-key kind of life-changing for me. And Tanner was just kind of like, it was a lecture.
That was Cheyenne.
So for you, it was like, what?
I enjoyed it. I saw a lot of stuff that he talked about that I could see in my life. I don't know. Like my wife is like, I don't know. How do you want to start this podcast?
Wherever you want.
Okay.
Just go for it.
So, when he was talking about... Cheers.
It's okay.
When he was talking about the poison ivy stuff.
Yes.
So, the study that was done in Japan.
Is that where it was done?
Yeah.
Huh,
that's how it
fact.
was allowed to be done in Japan. Because, like, ethically, it's a bit...
Is that how they figured it out? That makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, a lot of ethical things gone down in Japan.
Did you look it up or something?
No, that's what he said.
Oh, it doesn't say that on the PowerPoint, but I believe you.
Okay.
I just thought maybe you looked it up.
So the study in Japan, they took 30 participants, but they did 2 trials. And one of the trials was like, we're going to rub this random leaf on your arm and see what happens. But they didn't tell him is that it was actually poison ivy. And out of the 30 people, only 2 of the participants actually got a rash. And then they took the opposite, where they took poison ivy and they were like, this is a normal leaf that we're going to rub on your arm. Rubbed it on their arm. And a lot of them got hives and a rash and some other stuff, which is interesting. Very interesting. That goes into the next point that I was going to talk about. So, like, my wife, allergic to most things. Mm-hmm. She's like, chaos walking. Right. So, we were sitting down the other day, Peruvian place. We were going to get a whole chicken, some sides, as we usually do. We go up and they're like, we don't have any more chicken. And my wife's like, oh, I'll just get this, like, weird stew, Venezuelan stuff. Turns out it was made with a lot of peppers, a lot of tomatoes. Let me guess. She's allergic to. Both, yes. Very much so. Uh-oh. And I was like, maybe I can use some of the stuff I used in positive psychology. Stop it right now. And so I looked over and I was just like, she was like, oh, I'm going to eat this because I paid for it. She's like, but I'm not going to feel great after. And I was like, hear me out. Why don't we think happy thoughts? and see what happens. So, like, usually when she eats tomatoes and peppers and stuff, she gets, like, you know, a horrible stomach ache. She wants to die. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why don't we think about them happy thoughts? I was like, you're going to be fine. I was like, when's the last time you even had tomatoes? I was like, be honest with me. Even though I knew what the answer was, which was a long time. And she started eating them, and she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm gonna be fine. It's gonna be good. We're good. We're fine. So she eats the whole thing, and she was fine. Like, nothing really happened, which I thought was fantastic.
Is she not allergic to tomatoes anymore?
No. So, like, she still got a little bit of a headache the next day.
But she didn't,
it's like,
want to die.
Yeah. So, like, comparatively, I think it was fantastic.
That is awesome. I didn't want to correct you, but according to this, there were only 13 participants.
In which one?
The poison ivy. And they weren't split up into two groups. Both of them had their arms rubbed with both.
At the same time?
No. I think, like, close. So, for example, blindfolded participants were told their right arms were being rubbed with a poison ivy plant. Afterward, all 13 reacted with typical symptoms of poison ivy, itching, boils, and redness, except that none of them had actually been exposed to poison ivy as a harmless plant. All 13 reacted. All 13. And it was not a poisonous plant. And then, the same exact participants also had their left arms rubbed by a plant they were told was not poison ivy. And it actually was. And only 2 of the 13 broke out into a rash.
Not 30.
No, 13.
What do you know?
I just feel like that's kind of a big deal.
I mean, kind of. That's more than double.
Yes.
Of the participants.
But 13, 30, you know.
There's a 3 in there.
Yeah, exactly. Nevertheless, it still stands that that's absolutely nuts. When they were told it was a poison ivy plant, it 100% was not. And all 13 got sick with their arm got a rash or whatever. And then when they were told it wasn't, only 2 of them actually broke out. That's just nuts to me.
Yeah. Well, it's a similar thing that I was talking about with my wife. It's like, I don't know. I feel like people really undervalue positive thinking.
No, it's true.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I don't know. I feel like even positive thinking would just, like, decrease a lot of, like, stress, cortisol. Cortisol is just does wild things to your body.
It's just a stress hormone,
The stress hormone. But, like, it also, one of the things I learned in my nutrition classes is that if you're stressed and you eat the same amount of calories as somebody else, you'll gain more weight than the other person if you're stressed. Because your body is, like, storing stuff into fat. It's not burning as many calories.
Because it's stressed.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, we're dying.
Right. No, it's actually, we've talked about that in my other psychology classes. Yeah. How you get so stressed that your body's like, oh my gosh, we're dying.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. So, it was a very interesting lesson. And the thing is, you know, there's a difference between depression and positive thinking and, like, how positive that is, you know. And then just having the ability to think positive and being able to think positive. And also, just because we're on that topic of thinking positive and how it affects us, it did talk about resources. On slide 21, it talked about resources. And it said, what role does having adequate resources play in achieving a realistic or useful optimistic stance? And then we talked about John Henryism. You're the one who explained John Henry, huh? In class, when they asked.
I'm an older person in the class.
No, I know who it was, too. I have seen a little cartoon. He's like, you know, and there's like a little song, and he beats the machine, and he's plowing through this mountain, and then he wins, but then he dies.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. I don't really know what the lesson there was. Maybe, like, take care of yourself. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of those lessons back in the day were a little bit ambiguous. Because we're, you know, it's been a while since they made that.
That's very true. They haven't, like, redone it.
You know,
live action.
So, like, that might have been very useful back in the day.
Yeah.
But today's standards, it's not. I mean, it's just a little bit more confusing.
Yeah, it kind of is. Like, is there really a point?
Well, like, have you ever watched Songs of the South?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like...
That's why it's banned.
Well, so, like...
Zippity-doo-dah.
Well, like, the director was really good friends with a black guy, and he was, like, a civil movements rights activist or whatever, and he was just, you know, spreading history of what it was like for some people. And then he was also saying that, like, you know, it's not right to treat people this way.
Right.
You know? And then the point was like, oh, it's racist.
So why was that movie banned and The Help wasn't?
Help's probably a little bit funnier.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. I was going to say, I just watched The Help for the first time, like, a few weeks ago. It's very interesting. I didn't like the ending. I thought that was stupid.
Where she made the pie?
No, where she just walks off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen The Help.
Well, sorry to spoil it for you guys. It's kind of a sad ending. I mean, it's like a good ending, but it's just kind of sad for one of the characters. Anyway, back to John Henry. It said that individuals who score high on John Henryism on the John Henryism measure, so they work really hard, but are low in SES, are apt to be hypertensive. And then someone said, people should be optimistic when the future can be changed by positive thinking, but not otherwise. I don't know if I necessarily agree with all of that, but like a little bit.
That's fair. I was actually I was watching some comedian, I think his name was Bill Burr, but he had something that he said on a talk show where he was sitting there and they asked him like why he's always in like such a, you know, a good mood. Mm-hmm. How is he always like able to like see positive stuff? Mm-hmm. And he was like, why would you let something in the future ruin how you feel today?
Whoa.
So it's like,
That's kind of deep.
It's like something might happen tomorrow, might happen 10 days from now, but why do you have to think about it right now? He said, why can't you just work through that when it actually happens?
I agree, because then you're worrying about it double time. You don't need to.
Yeah.
Exactly. Borrowing trouble.
To cortisol.
Yes. So another study I wanted to talk about were the hotels and the maids. And this was made to manipulate expectancy. Oh, so just, you know, that other thing with the poison ivy, that's the expectancy theory. So if you expect whatever to happen, then it most likely will. Our brain is organized to act on what we predict will happen next. Expectations lead to neural firing as if the event was happening. Very interesting. Instrumentality is perceived likelihood that the performance will lead to desired effects. It's very interesting. Anyway, sorry, got distracted here. The hotels and the maids. So they took cleaning staff from 7 different hotels, and they told half of them how much exercise they were getting, how many calories they burned, how similar vacuum was to cardio workout, and then the other half were told nothing. Do you remember what the results were?
The women who were told that they were losing more calories, or that they were working out, told how many calories they were losing per maid activity.
Right.
Lost more weight.
Yes.
Than the other women. Which,
yes.
like, I would like to see what they looked like before. Because, like, is losing weight a good thing?
Well, it says the priming helped them decrease weight, blood pressure, body fat, waist to hip ratio, and BMI. It makes it a little bit more applicable.
That's fair, but if they're real thin.
Yeah, but what if they had high blood pressure? Also, this is terrible, but I feel like most maids aren't these tiny, skinny, wiry little things. Am I wrong?
You're probably not wrong. However, I would like to know what they looked like before.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
But also, if there were cleaning staff from 7 different hotels, that's probably pretty... There's probably some variety there, right?
Variety.
And then half of them were told about the exercise and half of them weren't. So I'm guessing that was randomized because that would only make sense. So that means that the people, half of them could be, you know, there'd just be a mix of all body types in both sections.
I respect that.
Thank you. So anyway, basically the result of that is that the mental construction, so how we think about what we do, of our daily activities, so the mental construction of our daily activities, more than the activities itself, defines our reality.
Which is so interesting. I don't know. This is something that Arnold Schwarzenegger said.
Okay.
So he was saying that you need to, like, focus on the muscle group to, like, gain muscle. And
interesting.
Basically, it's like when you're doing curls, to, like, focus on your biceps and, like, squeeze your biceps.
Well, that would make sense.
You know, like, even if you're lifting, like, a not a lot of weight.
Right.
Act like that is 150 pounds.
Right.
You know? And I wonder if it was like a similar thing with these maids, if they were told that, like, you know, sweeping decreases this amount of calories. If they were like, I wonder if I can beat that by focusing more on, like, whatever I'm doing.
Definitely. But it's also just a reframing of mind.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
I
did ask that in class. I'm like, well, Danny, he's our professor, what if they were told that and then they were like, ooh, let me work extra hard? And he was like, yeah, but I don't even remember what he said, actually.
Let's be honest. Danny probably doesn't know the research that well.
Yeah, he probably doesn't know this exact
I feel
study
like
for sure.
Whenever he's asked specific questions about the research, he's like, you know what, it's been like 5 or 6 years.
That is true.
And I was like, maybe we should get some more recent data.
Yeah, but I also feel like this is so interesting that I would want to know this. Because it's still applicable. It's not like 20 years passed and suddenly it's not applicable anymore. I don't know when this study was. I'm just saying in general.
That's fair.
You know? Like, that's why when you read research and they quote someone from, like, 1995, how it's like, how recent was that? And then it's still applicable, though. I do remember specifically asking him, okay, that's pretty old, though, Danny. Like, that study's pretty old. And he was like, but it's been replicated many times. This is just the original study. And I was like, oh. Not specifically for that one, but a different study. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so slide 24 is about positive outcomes and optimism. So optimism is operationalized in a variety of ways, and it's been linked with positive mood and high morale, perseverance and effective problem solving, academic, athletic, military, occupational, and political success. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Popularity, good health, and a long life. And it was even found to be related to less trauma. Do you want to read what the negative one was?
Pessimism, operationalized in a variety of ways, has been linked with foreshadows, depression, passivity, failure, social estrangement. Why does he put these words in here?
Well, that's what the study said.
Okay. Don't you think he could, like, change that up a little bit?
Well, social estrangement, that's like, if he changed that up, what do you want him to put, like, weird socially? Isolated?
I mean, isolation would, you know.
But it doesn't mean the exact same thing as social estrangement.
That's the problem. I don't know what estrangement means.
Well, let's look it up.
Okay. The next one. Morbidity and mortality, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
I don't know. I mean, to a certain degree, I feel like it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's like walking around being like, I can't do this, I can't do that, it's like, yeah, not with that attitude, you're not. You know? It's like, oh, I'm not good at math, so it's like, so I'm just not going to try. Well, if you don't try, you definitely aren't going to be good at math.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
But I think it's more focusing on, like, I feel like pessimism and positivity is just like you're focusing on two different things. Mm-hmm. So with positivity, you're focusing on, like, the positive events in your life. You know, you're not focusing on the failures.
Right.
With negativity, pessimism, I feel like you're only focusing on the times that you have sucked.
Yeah.
You know, the negative experiences in your life, which I feel like isn't a great stepping stone for, like, future success. Because if all you're focusing on, it's like, oh, I've only done this bad for my whole life. Versus somebody who's like, he's like, oh, remember all these times that, like, I've actually succeeded, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's like these two people could have failed and succeeded the same number of times.
Yep.
But, like, what you focus on determines, like, what your behavior is going to be.
Very true. This says for social estrangement, a significant decrease or discontinuation of contact with individuals with whom one formerly had close relationships, such as a spouse or family member. Then also talks about social alienation, a person's feeling of disconnection from a group. And then also says to be estranged means to experience distance or separation from others. So there you go. Yep, social estrangement. But yeah, I totally agree. We did talk about how you frame things matters.
Yeah.
What I wanted to talk about next was luck. Do you remember this?
I mean, he kept talking about his son, and I was like... It's like, oh,
I forgot about that part.
It's like my son has won like 3 of these like online Lego things with, you know, 100 people in it. I don't know. I feel like it's a similar thing where like he's probably like only told his dad about the times that he's won, you know? And if you're like putting in your name in a ballot all day, every day.
Yeah, but we don't know that he's doing that.
We don't. But like, I would assume so. Unless he's putting his name in multiple times.
Well, he made it sound like there's this competition and he's won that competition 3 times. So it doesn't matter how many times you've submitted it because it's like his one Lego set or art piece or whatever. I don't know.
Was it that? I feel like it was like they give you a free Lego set out of like 300 people. So like you...
Is that what it is?
I thought that's what he was talking about.
Oh, I thought it was something else. Obviously, I want to ask him now.
Well, if it was the opposite, what you're saying, then it would be more due to talent.
That's what I thought when he was telling it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, there you go for perception and what we pick up from different lessons. Oh, anyway, they did scientific stuff, or they did a research thingy. Isn't that great, research thingy? And they said from a scientific sense, there is no such thing as luck. But then scientifically, luck doesn't exist, but the appearance of luck can exist if you believe it does. But that's weird.
It is weird. Was that what he was talking about when he brought up the magazine study?
That's exactly what it was. So volunteers were asked to read through a newspaper and count how many photos were in it. And the people who claimed to be lucky before they took the test took mere seconds to complete the task, while the unlucky ones took an average of 2 minutes. Why? Because page 2 of the newspaper had a large print message that said, "Stop counting, there are 43 photos in the newspaper." So why did the lucky people see the message and the unlucky didn't?
So I feel like when you're negative, you're so focused on, what if I don't get it? What if this, like...
Right. What if I miscount a picture?
Yeah. And with, like, the positive people, either I'm going to win or I'm not. Doesn't matter either way. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're a little bit more easygoing and they just, like, see what, I don't know, opportunities that come into their own lives. Yeah. One of those things would be, like, my Uncle Mark. My Uncle Mark, he's made a lot of money. A lot of that would kind of just be due to, like, random opportunities that he's had in his life. So, when people come up to him, they're like, I'm selling these windows for, like, $30,000. He's like, nah. He's like, I'm good. It's too much. It's too much money for all these windows. And then the person will call him back later and be like, oh, hey. He's like, I'm like running low on money, and I have all these like $30,000 windows in the back of my storage. What were you gonna pay me for them? $1,000.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a lot of stuff like that where like...
Is that a real example? That feels like a real example.
That's a very real example
of
how my Uncle Mark is.
That sounds like luck, man.
Well, it's like he just shoots his shot, you know. It's like, how much would you pay me for these? And he's like, I will give you 10% of what you originally came to me with. If something like he comes up, he's like, oh, it's too expensive. And he just like throws it out there because he doesn't care if he gets it or not, you know. But on the off chance that he does get it, he's made a killing, you know.
So then he resold those windows for what they actually...
for what they actually were worth. Or he's in construction, so he puts them, you know, in his own buildings.
Then he doesn't have to pay for those windows.
Yeah.
So another thing that is said that was pretty interesting was halfway through the newspaper, another message read, "Tell the researcher you've seen this ad and get $250. And that was in every single newspaper. So the same probability for this huge reward was there for everyone in the environment, or everyone's newspaper. It was just a matter of whether you picked up on it or not. So that's pretty cool. And then it talks about cognitive psychology, and they call that predictive encoding, or priming yourself to expect a favorable outcome, which sets you up to see the favorable outcomes in the midst of obstacles. It's pretty cool, huh?
That is pretty cool.
Anyway, for me, this lecture was like life-changing, and it was so intriguing and interesting. For my other friend, she was just like, it was just a lecture, man. Like one or two of those studies was cool. She says, man, does she not?
No, I just think it's funny the way she talks.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I thought it was awesome. And that was that, you know. We're running out of time, but I'll give you the last word. What do you want to impart wisdom?
Impart wisdom?
Yeah.
With a word?
No. Like, last words.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, you get to say whatever, yeah. It's not that funny.
So, I would say, just kind of like changing your outlook on life. I don't know, that old saying of like, you miss 100 shots. Oh, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't shoot. You know? So I feel like positive people are just putting themselves out there more. Mm-hmm. And the people who are like more negative, more pessimistic,
don't put themselves out
probably
there.
aren't putting themselves out more because they probably think that they aren't going to succeed.
Right.
Yeah.
It's this idea of manifesting.
Manifest destiny.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that was an interesting podcast episode, even for me. Just kidding. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to embrace imperfection, find meaning, satisfaction, and joy from the journey, and think positive. I'm Kyra.
I'm Tanner.
And this is Imperfectly Broken, the podcast.